pick and prevail in your fantasy football league with the help of our starting lineup. At host to quarterback the show, we have Nick Giacobbe. Up next, a dual threat in Dynasty and Daily Fantasy, we have Cody Repass. And finally, working the waiver wire, we have Nick Cap. These are your playmakers that will provide you with sleepers, breakouts, and busts to help you achieve fantasy glory. This is the PrimeTime Fantasy Podcast.
Welcome, everybody, to the Week 14 live show of the PrimeTime Fantasy Podcast, where we give you our predictions, our picks, with the hopes that we hope we prevail in Week 14 and the rest of the 2021 fantasy football season. I am your host, Nick Giacobbe, and joining me is Nick Cap. Nick, it's Week 14. This is the last game of the regular season for fantasy football in most fantasy leagues. Maybe if you only have 4 teams making the playoffs or going to Week 15, but for most of us, it's make it or break it this week unless you have a playoff spot either locked up or if you have a playoff spot if you're not in the playoffs. So, Nick, how are you feeling heading into Week 14?
It's so crazy that we got the playoffs next week, man. That's nuts. This season has flown by.
It's scary that the season has flown by this quickly. I know. I always do the thing where it's like, we'll get to like Week 4 and be like, oh, we still got like 15, 12 weeks of football. That's okay. Then we get to Week 8 and it's like, all right, we're halfway there. Then it's week like 12, and you're like, well, this kind of sucks. So we're going to do our best today to give you the best information possible to help you win your matchup in Week 14 to get you into that playoff spot. But before we do have a couple plugs. If this is your first time listening, thank you so much, whether you're watching live or on the replay. We do this show every Tuesday, Friday, and Sunday. Time does fluctuate on the Sunday shows. For both the Tuesday, Nick's getting an important phone call. He has some fantasy updates on that.
We're good.
Like Adam Schefter, basically. For the Tuesday and Friday shows, it is the audio version can be found on any podcasting platform like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Anchor, basically anywhere where you could find a podcast, you could find the PrimeTime Fantasy Podcast. If you are on iTunes, please give us a 5-star rating and a review. If you would prefer to watch and listen to the show, go to YouTube. PrimeTime Fantasy Podcast is where you'll find the audio and video version of the show. For Sunday shows, we are live every single Sunday. Time does kind of fluctuate, especially now. Early Sunday this time, might be an early Sunday next week, and then I fly home. Nick's going to the Jets game that day, so probably another early one. So we're probably going to end up keeping this 8:30 time slot for the rest of the season. Yeah. I'm going to make that official. We're probably just going to do it the rest of the season, 8:30. We'll let you guys know on our Twitter, but that's probably how it's going to go, and that's okay. We do it every single Sunday, YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. Also, another big announcement. We're going to be live on the Colorcast app once again. We're doing the Sunday Night Football game once again. Unfortunately, it is another very, very bad game once again. It's going to be Packers-Bears. Bears going to Green Bay. We're going to watch Justin Fields get absolutely mauled up there by the Cheeseheads. It's going to be a wreck. It's going to be a lot of fun. We'll talk some fantasy. We'll talk some football. We'll talk everything football. And the best part is you could call in. Download the Colorcast app. It's only available on Apple devices, but you could listen to us. It's not video. It's only audio. Put a headphone in and listen to the game. Listen to us talk about football. Text us in the chat during the game. Join us at halftime. Join us during the game. Give us a call. You press the hot seat button. We can put you on for as long as you want. You don't have to keep it family friendly. You could rant. You could talk trash to us if you beat us in fantasy. You could do anything you want, basically, except for stuff that's obviously illegal. So, Colorcast app tonight is going to be a lot of fun. It's a huge opportunity for us, and we really appreciate you joining us. All right. We have some questions that we got on our Instagram page, so we're going to answer them now. Nick Barone, first question. Brandon Ayuk, Darnell Mooney, or Amari Cooper in PPR? This one's an easy one for me. I'm playing Amari Cooper. The football team has given up they're playing the football team this week. I believe they've still given up the most fantasy points to wide receivers. Dak's going to throw the ball a lot. I'm going with Amari Cooper.
Right there with you, man. Starting Amari.
I wouldn't play Darnell Mooney, though. I am playing in like 3 leagues. Ayuk actually is a kind of tough matchup against the Bengals, too, but Mike Williams and Keenan Allen had good games last week. Barone's second question, Nick, I need your help with this one. He says wide receiver spots and a flex. So I'm assuming 2 wide receiver spots and a flex. Hunter Renfrow, DJ Moore, DK Metcalf, David Montgomery, Brandon Cooks, or Jamar Jefferson?
That's exactly what it is. I refuse to answer because one of us is fighting for the last playoff spot in this league. So,
For those watching, I had to get up because I spilled some tea and I not want it to get on my computer. So I'll answer it, Nick. I do want my co-host to get that playoff spot, but I'm going to try to help you out. You're definitely playing DK Metcalf against the Texans defense. The Texans defense is garbage. It's terrible. Russell Wilson seemed to show some spark last week. Maybe he's fully healthy now, so I would definitely play DK. I like Hunter Renfrow against the Chiefs defense. They've given up a lot of points to wide receivers, and I do love Renfrow every week. He's been a really, really reliable fantasy wide receiver and a great, great waiver pickup if you did pick him off the waivers. So I'll play those two at your wide receiver slots. I like DJ Moore's talent. I don't really like the quarterback. Brandon Cooks is a really good matchup against Seattle. I think I'm going to bench Monty. I'm actually playing Jamar Jefferson in a league that I have to because I can't play J.D. McKissick and I can't play Jonathan Taylor. I'm going to say DJ Moore just because of the upside of the matchup against the Falcons. Failcons, Falcons. All right, question from my brother Joe. If Deebo Samuel does not play, well, he is playing, so you're playing Deebo. Should I start Kareem Hunt or Julio Jones? Just for the sake of it, I probably would have played Julio. I don't really like Kareem Hunt's matchup, but you're playing Deebo because Deebo's playing.
It's a tough one. I mean, Julio immediately takes over that wide receiver one role, and there's no one in Jacksonville that's going to cover him. So I think you give Julio a shot, give him his flowers, go off that name recognition.
Yep. All right, we're not going to go game by game. Injury updates to the best of our ability that we can. We obviously don't have the 11:30 injury report in since that's 8:30 right now, but we're going to go game by game, give you the best updates, and give you some players you should start and some you should sit. For the Seahawks at Houston Texans game, Adrian Peterson has a lower back issue and will not play. He had a touchdown last week. I believe he broke a record last week. Was Walter Payton's record or something? He broke some record or tied some record last week. Also, David Mills has been named the starter for the rest of the season by head coach David Culley. Don't think it really matters. Texans are still going to lose like 3 out of their last 3 or 4 games. Alrighty, Nick, who is one start and one sit for you in this game?
I'm absolutely going to be starting Russell Wilson against the Texans. Texans are incredibly bad in every aspect of the game. They've been good against quarterbacks this year, but let's not forget their division's filled with Ryan Tannehill, Carson Wentz, and Trevor Lawrence. That's a little inflated for the team that they actually are. Had a pretty easy schedule actually so far, and they clearly haven't done anything with it. I think Russell Wilson, he shows you why he was a top 5 quarterback going into this year and delivers another fantastic game against the Texans. The player I'm sitting is Brandon Cooks. Brandon Cooks did not have a single good game with Davis Mills at quarterback. I think he actually did in week 2, and since then kind of struggled since. So Brandon Cooks, I think he could sit on your bench for this week.
For me, my start's going to be the Seahawks wide receivers. The Texans defense is absolutely horrendous against wide receivers. They've given up the 6th or 7th most fantasy points to wide receivers. So Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, both of those guys I think should be locked in for a pretty big game today. As for a sit, I'm sitting the Seahawks defense. Jamal Adams is out. I think Quandre Diggs is a little banged up. I think they also have one of their defensive linemen is also a little banged up too. I know people are going to start the Seahawks defense thinking, oh, Texans, they scored a goose egg, I believe it was last week against Indy. I wouldn't start the Seahawks defense. They could get a pick or two, but I don't think they're going to have a dominant defensive performance, so I would bench them. Baltimore Ravens at the Cleveland Browns. Nick, one start, one sit.
I don't like anyone. I'm starting. I'm not worried about too much about Lamar's struggles. He always manages to finish off with good fantasy games, even when he has high turnover volume. I think last week was one exception throughout his entire career. So I'm not worried about Lamar. I think everyone else from that game besides Nick Chubb is benchable. And Mark Andrews.
Yeah, I'm a little worried about the Browns running backs. I spoke about it on our last show. I think I would bench Kareem Hunt for sure. And I would consider benching. I can't bench Nick Chubb, but the Ravens have given up the 4th least amount of points to running backs, and it's been really, really tough for them. 2 weeks ago, when they played, both of those running backs were held under 10 points. So just a really, really tough game. I think Mark Andrews is my big start here because the Browns, they've been like middle of the pack against tight ends, but I think Lamar has to find somebody to lean on, and I think it's going to be Mark Andrews. Jacksonville Jaguars at the Tennessee Titans. Julio Jones activated off the IR, as I said. Deontay Foreman and Jeremy McNichols will be splitting the running back carries for Tennessee. I think A.J. Brown is out too, right? I think.
A.J. Brown's still on the IR.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's on the IR next week as well.
All right, so Julio's wide receiver 1 then. All right. Who's the start and sit for you, Nick?
Start Julio. Bench everybody else, including James Robinson, after what happened last week.
That's just so tough to bench James Robinson since you drafted him so high. But the Titans have also been really good against running backs. They've given up the 5th least amount of points to running backs. So I'm with you on there. There's really nobody to start. This could be a Julio Jones show, though. Ryan Tannehill's going to have to throw to somebody, so it could be the Julio show. I wonder who I have in the spread. I kind of want to check who I have in the spread. I think I took Jacksonville because it's like an 8.5-point spread or something like that. But yeah, a lot of big spreads this week. A lot of wacky. I don't know. It's like a wacky week. It is a 9.5 spread, and I took Jacksonville. So
a lot of big favorite weeks.
Yeah. Las Vegas Raiders at the Kansas City Chiefs. Darren Waller is out with a leg injury. Foster Moreau to start. Nick, who's starting to sit for you in this game?
Start your Kansas City pass catchers. The Raiders have been in absolute shambles ever since the midseason mark. This has been 3 years in a row. It doesn't matter who the coach is or what the roster looks like. They always midseason lose their groove, and come November, they struggle. It's December. They're still struggling. They're not fighting for a playoff spot. Kansas City, even with that too high safety, guess who beat them last year when they did a too high safety? The New York Jets. The New York Jets beat them with a too high safety. Yeah. Until the Henry Ruggs 56-yard bomb that won the game with 9 seconds left. So you do not need to worry about the too high safety defense against Kansas City's pass catchers if the New York Jets are going to go out there and cook them with Sam Darnold last year.
For me, I'm going to start Clyde Edwards-Helaire because the Raiders have given up the 8th most fantasy points to running backs, so this could be a Clyde Edwards-Helaire game. Also, Travis Kelce is going to have an absolutely monster game. I know he always torches the Raiders. Raiders have given up the most fantasy points to tight ends, so yeah, that's one that I would consider. That's going to be a pretty big game. As for benching, I mean, I think everybody's kind of startable in this one. You're starting Josh Jacobs. You are starting Hunter Renfrow. You're starting Derek Carr. You can start Mahomes, Kelce. I mean, there's a lot of startable options in this one, and I think it's more of an offensive shootout.
If I had to say one player to bench, it's Foster Moreau. Washington was pretty horrendous against tight ends, and if he couldn't deliver there, there's no way he's going to deliver against Kansas City.
That's fair. Joe, we're going to get to your question at the end when we talk about the Rams and the Cardinals. It's a good question. New Orleans Saints at the New York Jets. Elijah Moore was shockingly put on the IR yesterday due to a quad injury. Nick, I don't know if you know anything more about this, but just seemed kind of weird. Did he practice this week?
He practiced early on in the week, and then he kind of started fading out. We saw him miss practice, and then it was just gone.
Interesting. And Alvin Kamara is supposed to play. I think he's missed the last 3 games due to a hamstring injury. So, Nick, I'm starting to sit for you in this one.
I am starting. You say Kamara is healthy, right?
Kamara's healthy.
Yeah, expect Kamara to go off. I'm benching every single Jet. Sean McVay is a phenomenal coach. They've been on such a slump. The Jets are missing their top 2 running backs and their top 2 receivers for this game. Corey Davis is gone. Elijah Moore is gone. There's no hope for the Jets in this game. The Saints' defense is a play. Expect Zach Wilson to have at least 1 turnover in this game. If the Jets manage to pull off some sort of a feasible game, expect Zach Wilson's stock to go up on a lot of people, because if he can manage to put together a cohesive game against this New Orleans unit without this many pieces on offense, I mean, there's not going to be a lot of doubt going forward because he's had a pretty good stretch of games where he's looked good. But besides that, for fantasy purposes, you cannot play a single Jet this week. On the Saints side of the ball, I'm playing Kamara. I'm playing the defense.
I'm going to play Taysom Hill. That's my start of the week. He's a top 5 fantasy quarterback last week, and he's versing the Jets this week. So I would say start Taysom Hill if you really need a quarterback this week. If you're on a fly, if you're, bye weeks, or if you don't really trust your quarterback's matchup, I'm starting Taysom Hill.
I can get behind that.
So next game, we got Dallas Cowboys against the football team. J.D. McKissick is out with a concussion. Breakaway speed. Tony Pollard is not supposed to play. He shouldn't make the game. Could be the Ezekiel Elliott show. Nick, who's your big start, big sit for this one?
I agree with Mike McCarthy. This should be a 100% Dallas win. And I think Washington finds a way to upset them this week. I think Washington pulls off an upset win. I think Antonio Gibson has a big week, even though Dallas has been pretty solid against the run. I think Terry McLaurin goes ahead and cooks Trayvon Diggs. I think Washington's been too hot. I think Dallas has been too inconsistent. I think I love Dallas this year. I think they've been phenomenal. I think the football team upsets them. I think those players go off. I think Dak finds a way to struggle in this football game.
I think they've won like 4 or 5 in a row at this point.
They started 2-6 and have won every game since. I don't know if they're 7-6 or did they lose one since? I don't know, something like that.
I'm gonna say you got to start your Cowboys receivers. You're obviously starting CD and you're starting Amari, and I'm gonna say start Dak too. Obviously, I know he's had a bit of a downward stretch, but I'm gonna say start Dak. As for the wide receivers, I think I'm going to bench Terry McLaurin. He's going against Trevon Diggs, and he just hasn't been consistent. So I might look to pivot to another wide receiver if you have another one. Maybe don't bench him. It's a little harsh, but I'm not sure he's going to have a super, super good Terry McLaurin game.
I would not be surprised if Terry McLaurin gives you a top 5 fantasy week this week.
This one we're going to disagree on, my friend. Atlanta Falcons against the Carolina Panthers. I hate this game so much, especially in my spread pool. Nick, who's starting to sit for you in this one?
You know what's the worst thing to look at on the board? It's seeing Cam Newton going up against the 31st best defense against quarterbacks after watching him get benched last week and not sure if PJ Walker is going to take over halfway through the game.
Yeah.
It's the scariest thing this week, watching how tempting every Carolina player is going to be. So for that reason, I'm locking in who you know is at running back. I'm locking in Chuba Hubbard. I think that's an easy one there. And that's all I got for you. I don't know who to play. I mean, Russell Gage has been really hot lately. He was my guy going into the year, and he looks good ever since he's gotten healthy. But I don't know how I start him knowing Stephon Gilmore's on the other side of the field.
I'll play Hubbard. I'll play DJ Moore. And I'll still play Kyle Pitts. And I'll play Cordell Patterson. Those are the only playable ones from this game. I'm benching Robbie Anderson, benching Russell Gage, not playing any of the quarterbacks.
For the year.
Oh, so. He is right. Yeah. I actually fixed my lineups. I put Russell Wilson into both my lineups, so we'll see how that one works out. I should have played KJ Osborne. That was a mistake by me.
I played him in a couple leagues. That big touchdown game.
I had Najee Harris and I had Najee Harris, Justin Jefferson, and Greg Joseph. So I didn't want to play another one on Thursday night. Just like a cynical view of it, and I should have.
I mean, I would have done the same thing as you. I wouldn't have stacked. You're chasing the points. You don't stack.
Yeah. Alrighty, we're now into the 425 games. Detroit Lions against the Denver Broncos. Both of the Detroit Lion running backs are out. Jamal Williams got placed on the COVID list. Melvin Gordon should play, which is really disappointing. And TJ Hawkinson is doubtful with a hand injury. So, Nick, my start is the Denver defense. I'm actually playing Jamar Jefferson in 2 leagues that I have to play a running back, but I'm benching everybody else on Detroit.
I'm benching every single Detroit Lions player. My start of the week is Denver's defense. The thing you need to watch with this game is Javonte Williams their RB1? If so, he's going to be your league winner for the fantasy playoff.
Yep. The Lions have given up the 5th most fantasy points to running back. So if you Javonte Williams and he does end up being the starter today, he's going to get you a playoff spot if you need one. I have Javonte Williams in 4 leagues starting. Get me my playoff spots, please. Especially with Jonathan Taylor out. Just terrible. The New York Football Giants against the Los Angeles Chargers. Keenan Allen is out due to COVID. I guess he got hit hard because he is vaccinated, but he hasn't tested negative yet this week. Then Mike Williams did get activated off the COVID list that they're going on, I think, on Wednesday. Daniel Jones is out with his neck injury. Mike Lennon is starting with he cleared concussion protocol. Kenny Galladay and Sterling Shepard should play. Kadarius Toney is out.
I like Jalen Guyton a lot here. I think Mike Williams has been so inconsistent at wide receiver, and they're going to force him the ball, but the Giants are really good at the back end, and I think Guyton's the guy that finds his way to have a day this week. I actually picked him up in a couple leagues. I just picked him up in another league to go start him this week. As we're speaking, I think Guyton goes off, has a nice day. He's been pretty reliable, and the rumors were before the year that Guyton and Joshua Palmer are two big pieces that they want to make a key part of this offense, and Mike Williams wasn't consistent enough and was too injury prone for them to give him a massive deal. You haven't seen the injury part so much the second half of the year, but you've definitely seen those inconsistencies after the first, 4 or 6 weeks. So don't be surprised if they look to pivot to Guyton and Palmer for the rest of the year as bigger leaders and with bigger roles in the offense. Someone that I'm going to be benching on the Giants side of the ball is every single person not named Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, I have Guyton in 2 leagues. I just put him in. I slotted him in our league, so I don't want to play Darnell Mooney. I'm thinking about it in my other league. I could either. Oh, actually, I just dropped him in that league to pick up. I picked up Jamar Jefferson, so I'm not going to play him. Alrighty, San Francisco 49ers at Cincinnati Bengals. Elijah Mitchell is out with a concussion and knee injury. I guess he didn't clear concussion protocol because he played with the knee injury last week. Deebo Samuel practiced Friday. He's going to play today. Second best wide receiver in fantasy football this year. Only missed 1 game with a groin injury. Who's your start and your sit for this one, Nick?
I like Jeff Wilson a lot here. I think he's the locked-in starter. I'm not worried about anybody else knowing Elijah Mitchell's out. I think he has a nice day. Finds his way to get you into the fantasy playoffs. We know all 49ers running backs deliver when their name is called. The question just is which one's name will be called. Yeah. I'd like to believe it's going to be Jeff Wilson this week. For a sit, it's going to be Tyler Boyd. Tyler Boyd, I feel like has not had a real standout fantasy week in a while Jamar Chase and T. Higgins have been doing the dirty work for the entirety of the season.
Higgins has gotten hot.
Higgins had
Boyd
3
Boyd
consistent
is sitting there. Boyd is sitting there getting like 10, 11 points, which isn't bad for a flex spot, but he's gotten hot.
Higgins for the past 2 weeks has gone 24 and 29, so pretty solid.
I agree with you. I would also watch out for Joe Mixon. He had a bit of an illness this week. 49ers are really good up front, only giving up the 8th least amount of fantasy points to running backs, I believe. So that's one situation I would watch. You're obviously playing Mixon. He's a stud, but he may not have a superstar studded performance. The Buffalo Bills against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'm really excited for this one, Nick. I really am. This is like a loser leaves town, but this is like who's the big dog here? Who's the big dog? So start sit for you, Nick.
I'm going to tell you my non-fantasy football fact right now. Buffalo's not a playoff team after this loss. They're going to be outside the playoffs. If they lose, they already lost to the Colts, and no matter what happens in the other 2 games, they already have the tiebreaker on Buffalo. So
that's exactly why it's a must-win.
They will be the 8th seed in the AFC, and guess who's going to do it to them? The same guy that did it to them for 20 years, Tom Brady. I'm a Jets fan. I would be heartbroken if I was a Bills fan and that happened to me this week. But for fantasy football, I think this game has to be hitting the over. After Josh Allen's not horrendous performance, given the circumstances of weather and all that, this team's going to look to put points on the board. The Buccaneers are going to put points on the board no matter what. It's going to happen. I don't care how good these defenses have been all year. These offenses have been just as good, if not better. And Tom Brady knows how to pick apart the defense. Josh Allen's been pretty consistent. And to me, it comes down to Tom Brady beating his old team again, beating his old rival again.
Yep. I think the Bills are going to win this game. I really do. I think they're desperate for a win. Like you said, it's almost like they'd lose their playoff spot if they didn't. So I think the Bills win this one. For me, my start sits are the tight ends. The Bucs have given up a lot of points to tight ends, so I'm starting Dawson Knox. The Bills have not given up a lot of points to tight ends, so I consider benching Gronk, even though Tom Brady is going to absolutely feed that man, like he always does every week.
Don't be surprised if he just goes to Gronk and Gronk just puts some more time on Buffalo.
Oh, yeah, then I'm going to have to eat some crow on Tuesday. All right, the Sunday Night Football game, the game that will be live on Colorcast for the entire 3 hours of the game. Chicago Bears at the Green Bay Packers. Justin Fields will be starting, which is a terrible decision by Matt Nagy, but what else is new? Who's the starting to sit for you in this one?
I'm going to tell you this right now. I'm going to tell you someone you should go stash for these fantasy playoffs. It's Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Randall Cobb just hit the IR, and every time that Randall Cobb has missed the game, MVS has put up a solid fantasy day. He always catches that long bomb when he gets the field. I don't understand why Green Bay doesn't use him more. He's clearly not the most talented receiver, but he fits that role of someone that just manages to burn 2 to 3 times a game. And I know Rodgers loves Randall Cobb and having him out on the field, but it adds another layer to your offense. And Valdez-Scantling has done that consistently for 3-4 years now. I don't know why they don't just guarantee him that role in the offense and just let him do his thing, let him see the field 75, 80% of the game. They don't do it, but without Cobb there, they're going to do it. So I would stash him. I'd go watch how he plays this week. You might be able to play him come the next week for the playoffs. I think he's your stash of the day. And outside of that, I think you're just starting the guys you're normally starting. You're not starting Allen Robinson. You're probably starting Montgomery because you're thin at running back.
You may have to start Mooney.
You're probably starting Mooney. Yeah. That's probably the big question mark of the game. And I'm willing to start him because they're going to have to pass to get back in this game when they go down 14-0 quick. So
I think whatever Packers running back gets most of the carries is going to be a top 3 running back on the week. I think, was it the Bears game that no, it wasn't. There's one week where Aaron Jones had like 4 touchdowns. It wasn't the Bears week though, but I think a Packers running back could get
the Monday Night Football game.
This one, yeah, it was against the Lions. I remember that one.
Yeah.
Alrighty, Monday Night Football. Speaking of it, is the Rams at the Cardinals. Big game, big game. I'm excited for this one.
Yeah,
Darrell Henderson is put on the COVID list. Sony Michel's a big play for this week. Chase Edmonds will be a game time decision. So who's starting to sit for you this week, Nick?
This is tough because last time I believe Connor had 2 touchdowns against them.
Yeah.
But, I think they find a way to limit it. We have a great question that came from Joe earlier, which I think is the big question.
Could DeAndre Hopkins be benched? I'm saying yes because I had him as my flop this week. He hasn't been consistent. He hasn't been getting the target share that he usually gets. He hasn't been the best wide receiver in the league, top 3 wide receiver in the league like he has for the past 5-6 years. And on top of that, he's facing Jalen Ramsey. I know he's had 100 yards on Ramsey before, but I'm saying bench Hopkins for Monday Night Football.
I think it's a fair take. I still think he's the best wide receiver in football from a talent perspective, but he's not seeing the workload. And when you got to go deal with the number 1 cornerback in football, it's fair to sit him.
Yeah. And a start for me, the Rams defense. I mean, the Cardinals defense has been so good against running backs, but David Montgomery hit 25 last week. So I'm going to start Sony Michel. He's going to get the bulk of the carries. Henderson's going to be out with COVID. I'll start Sony Michel.
I'll tell you someone else I'm going to start. Matt Stafford. Stafford's been so inconsistent lately. A lot of people were gassing him up, saying this guy's a top 5 quarterback in the league. No, he's not. He's never won a playoff game in his career. I don't want to hear it. I'm a fan of Stafford, and I'm going to tell you right now, there's no way he cracks the top 5 in terms of talent at quarterback in the league.
No, he doesn't. No. He's in the perfect system too. I wish Russell Wilson was in that system. I wish he wasn't on the Rams.
I don't think you want to see Russell Wilson in that life.
Well, can we trade the Rams offense? Actually, no. Can we trade the Rams team? Everybody on the Rams.
You just want to trade the coach.
No,
and the offensive line.
Let's trade the entire team except for Russell Wilson to Seattle. I'll keep DK.
You'll keep DK?
I'll keep DK. That's
it. They could go keep Robert Woods, who's on the IR for the season?
Yeah, we'll trade you. Actually, no, Odell. We'll trade you DK for Odell.
Oh, dude, give Odell Russell Wilson.
And Russell Wilson for Matt Stafford. Then we got a football team in Seattle.
God.
Alrighty, guys. That is our show for this week. Thank you so much for listening and or watching, or both. We appreciate it. Next time you hear from us, we'll be live on the Colorcast app. Go to the Apple Store. Download it. It takes all of 2 seconds. Sign up for an account. We're going to have the link posted to our Twitters, the Primetime Fantasy social accounts, to our personal social accounts. Please join us. It really is a big opportunity, and we really would appreciate it. It's during the Sunday night football game. You can put a headphone in to tune in and out. If you want to call in, press that hot seat button. We'll give you as much time as you want. Ask us questions. Talk about football. Talk about life. Talk about whatever you want. We'll have a lot of fun with it. Aside from that, you will hear us on Tuesday. That'll be our next actual show. Audio version, as always, available on all podcasting platforms: Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts. If you're on Apple, please give us a 5-star rating and a review. It does go a long way. If you prefer to listen and watch the show, it's YouTube, Primetime Fantasy Podcast. Nick, anything else you would like to say before Week 14?
Good luck getting into them playoffs, boys. Let's do this. We hope to see you here next week.
I want us all to be successful getting into the playoffs.
Exactly.
In every single one of our leagues. So best of luck, guys. We need some luck. I need some luck. Best of luck, guys. We'll speak to you tonight. Colorcast. Bears, Packers, be there.